All right, Hector, you have another report, right?
Yes.
Mr. Manning and the Dean?
Yes, now I'd like to introduce my Assistant Principal of Student Affairs, Dave Manning, who will be sharing our school culture report for first semester. And I would like to invite also the two deans to come up, Dean Weinberg and Dean Hackes. Come on up, guys.
I believe this is the first time the school board is formally meeting the two new deans. Alberto, Kara, before we dive into the report, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit to the board and give a little background? And it's not been a traditional year as a dean of students. You're not having to, knock on wood, break up any fights in the cafeteria or deal with any
football games.
Yeah, working the football games or things. But why don't you give a little background for the board?
Sure. My name is Kara Weinberg. I did not anticipate becoming an administrator in the middle of a pandemic, but it has been really fantastic. I come to you from Argo Community High School, where I taught for 5 years. I taught AP Government there. I directed the musicals, and I coached the speech team as well, so dedication is something I'm familiar with, and I've really enjoyed becoming dedicated to being a Bulldog and working here.
My name is Alberto Hackes. This is my 15th year in education, coming from Morton. I was there for 11 years. I worked for 3 years in CPS. Coach football, coach wrestling. I was the bilingual world history teacher for the longest that I can remember. And we bleed blue and white now. So glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
Welcome, Alberto. Welcome, Kara. Thank you. Dave, you are going into the first semester engagement report, and please make sure you cover the one question we received from the board.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to, again, acknowledge their work. They jumped in and have done a phenomenal job. There's a little healthy competition in our office, I think, about the dedication and commitment that Alberto just spoke to. So thank you guys for all your work. It's been kind of a rocky, unprecedented road this last semester, but you really did a great job, and continue to get creative with things as we go forward here. So today, we're just going to report out on our semester 1 data. There was a question in regards to our attendance protocol, so I'm just going to walk you through our attendance journey from the start of the school year to now. So in July, we received the ISB's transition planning document that outlined all remote and in-person learning to be recorded in our student information system, which is Skyward. And so they really wanted to make sure we have accurate data that's getting collected from both sides. We ended up going remote, as you know. And since, in looking at that format, we knew that we needed to change some of our internal codes, and so we did that with our staff. So internally, teachers were charting codes for students that were present, and this was in a remote setting. Present and virtual cut, although that counted as a present code, it was more of a behavioral tag for us to chart. So anyone with a virtual cut may have been in class but then left or didn't show up. Non-participant would be someone that logged in but then didn't participate. Again, that counted as a present code, but more of a behavioral thing that we would track and keep a hold of with our staff. And then WQ code is something that we put in place. We really wanted to hold our students' confidentiality, at high esteem, and so we wanted to, any person that was COVID positive or anyone that fell into our quarantine protocols through contact tracing fell into the WQ code, which basically meant it gave our staff indicator that this student would be quarantining and then be flexible with them, especially in rigorous activities such as PE and things like that, because some of our PE teachers were getting really creative and doing some awesome things outside when we were remote, and kids were running and exercising, and so this would just be kind of one of those areas where they could say, okay, it'd be accommodating to their needs during that time. I do want to mention that our entire office, as well as Ms. Spry, went through a contact tracing certification program, and we'll get the data here in a little bit, but I think it was a little bit over 230 or 40 students that we contact traced last semester, and that was all through our office, again, with our deans and myself, and so that was a big initiative. Going forward here, and to assist our teachers with some of our attendance codes, we also came up with a 15-minute late tardy form for teachers to complete for students that were chronically tardy to the remote setting, as well as a limited internet access form that we used to make contact with the family to see if we could either bring that student in, because we did offer some of those opportunities for a semester for students that didn't have Wi-Fi or needed to link up with our Wi-Fi, or also we provided some hotspots. through Dr. Smetana's office as well. So those are some areas and things that we utilized. As we moved forward into the hybrid setting, teachers reported attendance a little bit differently. We got rid of some of those codes and then just really stuck with the remote, remote learning, and then present, and then U, which would be if the student didn't attend class at all, and that U would turn into a cut, and we'll speak to the cut question here in a second. After 2 weeks, if that U, that unverified code would sit there, which would mean no parent would call in, and then the deans wouldn't have a message so they could overturn that. That code would sit there for 2 weeks and then turn into a cut. Now we did that for a couple of reasons. Previously, those unverifieds would just sit out there. And so talking with the deans, what they wanted to do was really have a good set of data so that we can look at from those cuts. And before, it would just be an unexcused absence, and that was like a blanket code that we used. And now, unexcused is more for a student that maybe slept in, the parent called in, they would sit with that unexcused, absence. The cut would be, we didn't hear anything, and then the deans would follow up from there, but there was no parent contact or anything that came into our office from there. In the hybrid setting again, so we talked about those 3 codes, and then the data that we got, there was an automatic notification that went out through Skyward per period that the cut was left in. So that was another reason why we left the cut code in there as well, is that every period that student was cut, an email would go out for that student to the parent. So that was another area that we tried to intervene to help support our teachers, their attendants, and our students and families. Any questions on our attendance reporting or follow-up on that? Okay, and moving into our semester data, looking at semester 1, we held an average daily attendance of 95.5%, which mirrors pretty much our attendance marks from the last 3 years. Because of the unique year that we've had, the following 3 metrics we used in this report. So excused absences, average cut, and login issues. The data represent overall averages per period per day. So the overall average excused absence came out to 14.62 students per period per day. The average cut rate came out to 33.3 students per period per day, which is significantly higher than last year. However, the changes in how we report this data was made, and so that's why you saw the increase in the 33.3% there.
So Dave,
Yeah.
quick question there. But last year, we only had COVID like the last quarter, so could that contribute to kind of the difference in scores?
Not too much, because we made that decision to turn those U's into cuts, where those U's would just sit out there. So we did that this first semester when the deans came in. So that's why it
was our own decision.
It was our own decision to do that, more for a data tracking purpose, and then also to give you an accurate readout about what's going on with our data from the office. So typically we would just say unexcused absences, and that would be something that we'd report out on. But that, again, it's a blanket code that describes various behaviors. And so with the cut, that there was no contact made that we received, and we wanted to just make sure that we had a difference there between the two.
So did you say the increase is because of the different way in which you're collecting the data?
Yeah.
As opposed to, we didn't go, because it's a drastic jump.
Yeah, so before the U, which would just be an unexcused absence, would sit in our system, and it would never change over. So after 2 weeks, if we don't hear anything, and we've reached out to the family and still haven't made contact, that U would turn into a cut. And so that's why you see the increase there.
Okay, so it's not that we have just so many more kids.
It's a different way of looking at the data.
Got it, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But David, the numbers, they look, it's almost like the excused absences went down and the cut went up. So it's almost like, well, you're at home, so I'm not going to call or write a note for you to get out of school. You're just going to not go to this class today.
Right, yeah, and that's exactly, that's why we did the cuts and the U's. And so that's why that data is kind of flipped. It's exactly the same, it's just flipped. So, but at least it's a metric that we can narrow in on, and it gives our staff and Skyward, for that matter, because with the U, I don't think there's an ability through Skyward just to send that notification out. Once we flipped it to a C, then everyone's notified, all the family members for each that are in our Skyward system are contacted then per period for that. So. Okay, the last metric that we used was login issues, and that, it's really great to see this go down Looking at it from the beginning, it was significant. So it was 22.7 per students per period per day, and then that went down to 10.64 at the end of the semester, which is great. Which means our deans were getting after it, connecting with our families, intervening, bringing students in. And so you look at our total population and having 10 students per period that may have had a login issue, that's great. It's a testament to the interventions that we've done throughout the school year.
Do we have any students who have just not connected at all?
If you guys want to speak on that really quickly.
We don't, and when we get into our initiatives too, after Dave speaks to suspensions, we'll talk about why we don't have any of those students, but we have made contact with every single student that's enrolled at RB, whether that's from a home visit, a phone call, an email, and we've gotten positive contact in some way. Now, there's some kids at the beginning of this semester who have fallen off the radar a little bit that we've conducted a home visit for, done a phone call. We need to make contact with a parent at home to make sure that they are still enrolled here. That, I believe, is 2 right now, 2 students that we're working on getting positive communication at home. But even those students have logged in intermittently since the beginning of the semester, just not frequently enough that we're satisfied that, they're doing what they need to do.
Thank you. That's a huge improvement from the fourth quarter, if we remember.
Yeah, and that was kind of something that we knew that we needed to bolster up. And so when they came in, it was like, okay, we're communicating, we're getting after it, because we have to. There was no students in our building at the beginning of the school year, and so that was the dedicated practice to really connect with our students, and they've made great relationships. And Alberto will talk about our mentoring program that we use through Remind. There's some initiatives that we'll go through here in a second, and if you have further questions on that at that time, we can go through those. The suspension report, if we can get into that. So we had 2 suspensions, and we kind of cut the suspension report down a little bit on this, but we had an incident on Zoom where a student was in possession of a vape device, and then a student also showed a BB gun on Zoom too that we dealt with. And so that was the dean's first experience with some of the discipline, and I think we had a really good conversation with those parents, and we brought them in, and more of a restorative thing too. And we're learning as well. On Zoom, we started off with no restrictions, and we had the Zoom bombs and all that. And through shoring up our account and adding some things, those went away. I thought our behaviors went down. So it was one of those things where we took off, and then we had some issues, and then once we secured everything down, we really didn't see anything after September, which is great. Okay, so to kind of paint a picture of what we did in our office to help our students out through interventions, I'm going to let the deans go through some of these items.
Just to continue on with that momentum of the attendance discussion, we put in place a few interventions just to give parents every opportunity possible to communicate with our office about why their student might be absent. So in addition to every day parents get an email if a student has 1 unverified in any period. So let's say mom and dad go to work, student doesn't wake up for first period, they're marked with a U. Mom and dad will get that email at the end of the day. They can then respond with whatever the situation may be, and we can correct that attendance code in Skyward. Additionally, we send out 2 letters, a 5 letter and a 10 letter. So when a student accumulates 5 absences, a letter is generated automatically and sent home, just kind of informing the parents of the importance of being present in school for academic success. At the 10 absences, a letter is generated and also sent home. This letter describes how a home visit may occur. We'll contact them for further information regarding that. Last semester, we were able to do 30 home visits with our student liaison officer, Lane Neiman. While these visits don't sound entirely positive, we found that we were able to really get to know the community through those home visits and to really make some positive changes with some of our families for our students. We did put a pause on those visits briefly when numbers spiked in the community for positive cases, but we are doing those visits again, and we've done quite a few this week already with some more that need to get done before Friday. Additionally, another letter that we sent out was for students who were failing 2 or more courses at quarter 1. This letter kind of outlined some of the resources that families and parents had, including how to contact counselors, teachers, how to go to office hours, all kinds of resources that they could access to raise those grades. Once we realized that that number of students who were failing 2 or more classes was quite high, we decided that we wanted to have what we called a triage space upstairs to get those students into the building, into the study hall room, and to give them as many resources as possible to try to raise those grades before the semester. So we have a couple of really instrumental people who helped out with that. Juan Tinoco, who's a Spanish teacher here, is going through his principal prep program. He was really instrumental in helping to organize the names of students, to communicate with teachers about whatever those students might need to pass those classes. We had a number of teachers who cycled through the study hall room upstairs to help us raise those grades for those kids, in addition to Bob Dollins, who helped to facilitate that space, and the counseling office. So that was really a group effort. At one point, we had 25 students coming regularly to that study hall space who were failing 2 or more classes. The vast majority of those kids raised those failing grades to passing grades. So we are proud of that success. We still have the library space open upstairs for students who need the 4 days a week, who were really successful in that study hall space, who want to continue coming to be in the structure of the school building.
So to add to that, Mr. Tinoco, who's also the instructional coach, it was like a two-pronged, movement here. We had him really focus with the freshmen, focus on the freshmen, and then his emails got a lot of responses, from teachers. So he got bombarded with feedback. So then we were able to make phone calls, to those parents, and then have some of those kids, some of those freshmen specifically, come to the building and turn it around. So in addition to, so thank you, Juan, for that. In trying to make connections with some of these students, and we're both new to the district, so we're kind of like freshmen as well. We know that the cell phone is one of the, if not the best way to communicate. You tell us, right? The cell phone is like the lifeline. So, it used to be called Remind 101. So we use Remind, to send these text messages to students. Without any, personal information being thrown out there, So we were able to get about 59 students, and that list came from, some of them were, frequent flyers from the previous year or whatever, anyone who's come up on the radar before. So we were able to get that list, our school psychologists, our, social workers, counselors, they've met to identify some of these students, who need some extra services. Or just, a nudge here and there. So we were able to take that list, divide it up. We had security helping us early on. But, once the school year started rolling, we figured, we just split the list and send as many text messages as possible, twice a week, 3 times a week, or just, weekly, whatever it is. So as long as, kids are getting those text messages from us, it's been very successful. It's been positive, we get to know them on a different level, if you will, even though we're new. They understand that they got a lot of people in this district, even if they're brand new. We care about them. They're part of the family. We're part of the family. So, we're on those text messages as much as possible. Another thing we've done, so with lunches, lunch has been for any student who's needed, or family who's needed that service, since last semester. From August to November, you see over 4,000, 4,620 lunches were delivered, free, reduced, the families who signed up for that. So that's about 55 to 63 families. Starting on the 23rd of November, we, with the new program that we have, that, added more lunches. That had, grab and go for students when they leave the building, and then parents are able to pick it up too as well, from 11 to 1 or whatever on Mondays. So, we've had about the same amount, 3,356 lunches, 548 of those students, they take them as they leave the building, and it's quite the sight, as we're the crossing guards, depending on whether it's at the beginning of the school or at dismissal, and you see kids with their bag lunch. They all look excited, so there's some cereal in there too. There's breakfast in there now too, so it's pretty fantastic that we do that. And then another thing we're doing that we're gonna that Friday should be our next round here are the Student of the Week certificate deliveries. You know, Student of the Month was always such a big deal, right? Well, we've upped the game and we do Student of the Week. Initially, we're delivering those certificates, you know, but as we get more students in the building, as we get, we have stuff to do in the building. We can't really be out there delivering certificates all the time. So we've kind of switched that up. So now we use Instagram. Dr. Freitas does the shout outs and we'll deliver those certificates. So, just trying to make connections, ensuring that kids know that their work is valid and that, we know that they're doing it,
Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Kara. Dave, is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, just a couple of things. And we had really good engagement with our students, 476 or so, just our 479 from the engagement piece on the activity side, which is up actually from where we were at last year. Just kids in activities, not athletic related or anything like that. So we're about 50 or so up, which is to be expected because we did have some virtual stuff, some in-person things. I'm starting a student leadership forum. So I'm an out-of-the-box thinker a lot, and we take probably an hour session, maybe one time a week or so, and think about what events we can put together. So we had the drive-through where Kara was in, Rouser for 4 hours, and we did the holiday walk, which was it took a while to come up with that idea and working with a parent group. And so this leadership, we were just talking, and Alberta was mentioning what they do at Morton. We're going to bring all of our activity leaders together this semester. We had a Zoom meeting last week. We're going to have it tomorrow, and our 2SA members are going to be on that call too. We need their help. They're going to not only help us plan events, but also give us the pulse of, the engagement here, and then also just lean on them. We may do a book study, just, help them as leaders, and then in turn they can help us as well as leaders here. So it's a win-win for everybody. Looking forward to it. We had over 25 students on that call. From all of our activity areas. So a lot to do, a lot to go forward, and a lot to look forward to. Chess tournament, state tournaments coming up, and our spring musical as well. And Speech is doing some great things. They've had a lot of high places, finishes. They had a second place, a fourth place, and a seventh place last week at their tournament. So congrats to the coaches there and what they're doing.
So kind of the elephant in the room, and maybe for our students, we've not had any of the dances. And how did the students kind of react to that? Those big, signature dance, homecoming, turnabout, prom. And is there anything that we can offer that they can look forward to?
Yeah, we continue to look at the mitigations and how we can safely put something together. And that's what, the Wonderland Walk was. And that was, I think really well attended for what it was. A dance, obviously we need to look at the state guidance and see where we're at, at the end of the year. We're currently talking about prom and how that's gonna go. And so we're moving forward with some ideas on that. So I'm looking forward to hosting a prom here, obviously, and the graduation too. As far as a dance, I'm gonna put that on hold for a little bit, but we'll continue to work with our student leadership forum here to come up with some in-person activities, whether that be maybe a movie in the gym here, or something on the field when the weather gets a little bit warmer, outdoor events. But we have all that in mind, but we can only do so much, and that's why we need more resources to help us with that.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback off of that. I'm just wondering, when you're brainstorming and thinking outside of the box, if there's a way that we could just find a way for the seniors. They really haven't had a senior year. They've missed out on quite a bit. Just wondering, just keep that in your mind, because I know a lot of seniors are, and not our wonderful kids over here. I have a senior, and I know a lot of the kiddos he hangs out with, and they've just already checked out. Right, their head is already in college, wherever they're going, because this year has been, right, it is what it is, but I would just ask you to consider that.
Yeah, absolutely, and the leadership forum, a good percent of those students are seniors, and they're excited to come up with some ideas that we can put in play here. So, to be, stay tuned.
Sure.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dave, Alberto, or Kara?
I was going to ask a quick one. For the absence letters, are those excused, unexcused, and cuts, or are they just a certain one of those three?
Yeah, so kind of all of the above. So the 5 absence letter will notify you when you've reached your 5 excused absence. Obviously, beyond that, if you are sick and you have a doctor's note, you can submit those, and that's not going to count against you. Once you hit 10, that's for unverified, excused, cuts, that's everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Alberta, Carrie, doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Dave, excellent. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Guys, quickly, I just wanted to add, guys, thank you, Dean Weinberg, Dean Hawkins, and Assistant Principal Manager for adding value to RB. You guys have been engaging with our parents, bringing unique programming and putting our students first. I'm so proud to say as a principal that every single student receives communication and is connected to our school. Now, we got some work to do, right? But I'm really proud to say that we connect with every single student. Thank you, guys.
We gotta give another shout out, sorry. As far as lunches, our security staff.
Oh, yes.
They've been going out to delivering these lunches, twice a week at this point. The streets in, some of those streets are hard to get around. In Brookfield and Riverside is a maze, so, they've been splitting, duties on that. And then Tony at Quest, they've been understaffed and they've just been rocking and rolling with those lunches, they're always there, so our families are getting their food.
Good job, Alberto. Way to recognize it. That's not what we meant to say. Good job.
It takes a village, man. Thank you.
All right, move on to old business, life safety, sustainability.
No new updates on that at this time.